The mighty Thor. Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. Thor belongs to the ancient and powerful race known as the Ksmr, who dwell in the fabled realm of Asgard. Throughout history, these beings have been revered and worshipped as gods, especially by the Vikings of Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. In ages past, Odin, known also as the Allfather and Lord of Asgard, desired a child who would one day surpass him in power. To this end, Odin wooed Gaia, the earth goddess, and from their union Thor was born, in a small cave in Norway on Earth. Odin took him to be raised in Asgard by his wife, Frigga. The young Thor grew up alongside his adopted brother, Loki, who was the son of Laufey, king of the frost giants. Despite Thor's devotion to Loki, the younger sibling was always jealous of his more favored brother. Thor grew in power and popularity, and on his 8th birthday, Odin had the hammer Mjolnir created for him by the dwarves, enchanting it with powerful magic. Odin decreed that Mjolnir would be presented to Thor when his son had been proven a worthy warrior. After spending the next 8 years training and performing heroic deeds, Thor was given the hammer and declared the greatest warrior in Asgard. While Thor continued to engage in many heroic battles and adventures through the years, he grew headstrong and proud. On one occasion, Thor broke a truce between the Asgardians and their mortal enemies, the brutal frost giants, nearly starting a war. To teach his son a lesson in humility, Odin sent Thor to Earth in the mortal body of a crippled medical student, Donald Blake. Stripped of his hammer, his powers, and memories of being an Asgardian, Thor, as Blake, graduated medical school with top honors. He gained a reputation as a caring family doctor and a brilliant surgeon. He opened a private practice in New York City. He worked beside a caring and skillful nurse, Jane Foster, and the two fell in love. After 10 years on Earth, Blake received a subconscious prodding from Odin to holiday in Norway, where alien Kronans were preparing to invade Earth. Fleeing into a cave, which, unbeknown to him, was also his birthplace, Donald Blake discovered a plain walking cane in a secret chamber. When Blake struck the cane against a boulder, he transformed into Thor, while the cane became the mighty Mjolnir. Thor fought the Kronans, and their invasion was thwarted. Tapping the ground with Mjolnir, Thor was able to transform back into Donald Blake, holding the simple wooden cane once more. Blake returned to New York City, using his secret identity of Thor to fight crime, defend Earth, and contend with the jealous and hateful Loki, who plagued him with many devious tricks and outright confrontation. Marvel's first immortal hero has been hurling his hammer and raising a storm ever since his debut back in 1962. He proved an instant hit with readers. He was every bit as powerful as the Hulk, and on top of that, he was an Asgardian immortal who spoke in a strange way and had some of the wackiest villains ever seen in comic books. Of course, when you have the power of a god, your villains need to be every bit as strong. And so it was that Thor's half-brother Loki was introduced in 1962. When the time came for Marvel to create a superhero team of its most powerful beings, Thor was first in line as a founding member of the Avengers in 1963, which was very apt seeing as their first foe was none other than Loki. Although Stan Lee had co-created Thor along with Jack Kirby, he had handed script-writing duties to his brother, Larry Lieber. However, from Journey into Mystery 101 in 1964, he began writing the stories himself. In '66, Journey into Mystery had a change of name, and from 126 was retitled The Mighty Thor. The 1960s were a golden age for Thor villains, as he came up against fellow Asgardians, the Destroyer, the Enchantress, and the Executioner. The creative team behind Thor changed in 1970, when Jack Kirby left the title and Neil Adams penciled issues 180 to 181 before John Buscema took over. Stan Lee was soon to hand over scripting to Jerry Conway, Len Wein, and Roy Thomas. Buscema was to illustrate Thor's adventures right up until issue 278 in December 1978. Thor 190 in 1971 was a real tearjerker, as Thor himself died at the hands of Hela. Lady Sif showed her love for the Thunder God by asking Hela to take her life instead. Moved to tears, Hela relented and allowed Thor to live. Issue 200 in 1972 is seen through the eyes of the Norns as they witness events that have not happened yet, as Loki leads an alliance of trolls and giants against Asgard in a terrible battle that guarantees mutual destruction for all. Thor 250 saw the evil Mangog disguised as Odin in order to get hold of the Odin sword. He got the better of Thor, but luckily, without the adoration of the Asgardians, he lost the power to even hold himself together. In 78, the Ragnarok saga came into fruition, starting with Thor issue 274 and the death of Thor's close friend Balder. In the following issue, Odin gave up part of his own life force to keep Balder alive. Ragnarok is finally averted in 278, with the final outcome seeing Thor banished from Asgard once again. The 1970s come to an end with Thor challenging the Celestials in defense of Earth. The 1980s were all about appearances, and even Thor found himself changing with the times. Comic fans were about to be wowed as seldom before, as Thor found himself defeated by a horse-faced alien named Beta Ray Bill. Walt Simonson began both writing and illustrating Thor from issue 337 in '83, and ushered in a new age of wonder for the hammer-wielding Avenger. His run on the book remains a fan favorite to this day, lasting as it did for 3 years. Beta Ray Bill was introduced in Mighty Thor 337, and he was the first character in the Marvel Universe to lift Mjolnir, although of course more were to follow. After beating Thor in combat, Odin had another hammer made, specifically for the honorable alien. For a while, Thor was cursed by Hela, who made his bones as brittle as glass, and also made him completely immortal, so that no matter how horrific his injuries, he would always survive. This led to Thor's first major costume change, as he began to wear battle armor. Following Walt Simonson's departure from the book, Tom DeFalco began writing Thor's adventures, teaming up for the most part with artist Ron Frenz until early '93. The '90s saw Thor banished from Asgard yet again, this time for seemingly killing his brother Loki. During this period, he was replaced by Eric Masterson, who was to become the hero known as Thunderstrike. Thor, like the rest of the Marvel heroes, found himself trapped in an alternate universe after the defeat of Onslaught. After his return to the main universe, he soon found himself bound to the life force of mortal Jake Olsen. The 21st century has seen some of the most startling changes ever to hit everyone's favorite thunder god. Thor became ruler of Asgard following the death of Odin in battle against Surtur, and he even went so far as to marry the Enchantress. Although all of these things were set right when the Thunder God managed to reverse events through the use of time travel, after this, Loki succeeded in bringing Ragnarok about, and Thor ended up having to rebuild Asgard in the sky above Oklahoma. During the Secret Invasion event, Thor teamed up with Beta Ray Bill once again to overcome the Skrull forces. He then joined forces with his old Avengers comrades to combat Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers as they invaded Asgard. In an attempt to improve human and mutant relations, Thor was asked to lead the Avengers Unity Squad for a time. In more recent times, Thor has undergone some seriously traumatic, life-changing events. Following events in the original Sin storyline, Nick Fury whispered a special secret into Thor's ear, which had a devastating effect upon him. He lost the ability to pick up his hammer, Mjolnir. Without his hammer, Thor used the battle axe Jarnbjorn in its place. He then went on to lose his arm in battle against Malekith the Accursed. It was around this time that Jane Foster, a nurse and friend of Thor's old alter ego Donald Blake, found Mjolnir and picked it up, taking on all the power of Thor. Thor was far from pleased about this at first, and he tried to retrieve the hammer. But afterwards, he relented and allowed Jane to remain a Thor. He then gave up both his name and role, and now fights under the name Odinson, still using Jarnbjorn, and now equipped with a prosthetic arm of Black Uru. As a thunder god among men, Thor has vowed to protect humanity from the evils of the Nine Realms. Bestowed weather-wielding powers and flight from the mystical Mjolnir, this Asgardian wonder was mighty even before he picked up the hammer. Perhaps Thor's most distinctive trait, the ability to relentlessly batter foes with the elements, distinguishes the Asgardian Avenger from his peers. Coupled with the external force of an unbreakable Uru hammer, Thor's pretty much unstoppable. When the Halcyon hero really wants to make an entrance, he enlists the help of his four-legged friends. Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder are mystical rams that bear the distinct privilege of pulling Thor's enchanted chariot through the spaceways. Capable of being reborn just like their Asgardian owner, you'll want to get out of the way of these hirsute heroes. An eons old Asgardian who harnessed the ability to wield lightning, Thor chose to protect humanity against his father's wishes. Over the millennia, he has made an unparalleled amount of amazing allies and astonishing enemies. Heimdall, the stoic overseer of the Bifrost, Asgard's interdimensional rainbow bridge. Heimdall is the shining city's first line of defense. The Norse god of vigilance, his staunch belief in justice outweighs even his dedication to the Allfather. Lady Sif, an unstoppable descendant of the Vanir elder gods. Sif's a childhood friend of the Thunder God, who has become an Asgardian legend in her own right. Faring the stars in search of adventure, she's fought for Asgard in countless cataclysmic battles. Beta Ray Bill, a god hunter from the burning galaxy of Corbin. Bill was chosen to lead his people to a new home. Detected by a SHIELD satellite on his journey, the horse-like hero was challenged by Thor, but proved his worth by successfully lifting Mjolnir. Surtur, a ferocious fire demon, the monarch of the molten fields of Muspelheim, has contested Thor and his kin many times over the years. Surtur played a huge part in Asgard's Ragnarok and subsequent destruction. Hela, the purported daughter of Loki and the giantess Angrboda. Hela is the goddess of the northernmost realms of the dead, known to strike fear into even the most steadfast of souls. Gore the God Butcher. Beware the God Butcher. Since having had his prayers go unanswered in his darkest hours, Gore embarked on a crusade that would only end after 3 millennia, when a trinity of Thors from different eras joined forces to slay him. Rarely has the god of thunder fought a more formidable foe. Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.